I want to tell you about the last time I felt like a sane man before I found out I've been right all along. My name's Daniel. I'm 27, and I'll tell you this the way I'd say it to your face. Not for sympathy. I'm past that. If you've ever sat in a parked car talking yourself out of a feeling you couldn't name, you already know the first half. Her name was Rachel. 4 years together, 20 minutes apart, same city. For most of 4 years, I had this low hum, not jealousy, just a quiet wrongness, like a picture hanging a half inch crooked that only I could see. And every time I said it out loud, Rachel and our friends had the same words ready: paranoid, insecure, controlling. They handed them to me so often, I started carrying them like they were mine. The group even had a joke about it, when they called me the detective. One night, I found a man's gray hoodie wedged under her car seat. She said it was her cousin's, and when I told Marcus, my best friend, he looked at me like I'd embarrassed myself, so I apologized. I bought her flowers for the crime of having eyes. I apologized to her for what she was actually doing. So by the time the message came, my first instinct wasn't anger. It was to assume I was misreading it. It landed on an ordinary Tuesday night. Me on the couch, feet up, completely at ease. A message from Rachel, except it wasn't written for me. 2 airline tickets attached, and under them, one line: can't wait to give you hugs and kisses. And here's what my paranoid, controlling brain caught immediately. We lived in the same city. You don't buy a plane ticket to give somebody hugs and kisses when you could just drive over. So who do you fly to? I didn't scream. I'd been trained out of screaming. I walked over and asked her, calm as anything, who they were for. Watching her face decide what to do was the worst part. She chose a lie. She said it was for Robin, a childhood friend who'd moved away. A year earlier, I'd have swallowed it whole and apologized for asking, but something in me I thought was dead. I finally stood up. I said, fine, show me the thread, call her right now. And the lie came apart in real time. The number couldn't be found. The thread was cleared. And the flight left at 6:05 in the morning. And here's the detail that broke me, the one you'd never invent. In 4 years, Rachel never once got out of bed before 9. Not for work, not for me. And here she was, setting an alarm for dawn. For him. Once the first lie fell, it all came fast. It wasn't one man, it was 2, one in town, that was the hoodie, and one out of state. 4 weekends in a row, she'd said she was visiting family, and she'd been at his place. I'd driven her to the airport for one of them. I carried her bag to the curb, and this is where it stops being a breakup. Reeling, I called my best friend, Marcus. I barely got it out. She's been flying to see some guy. And before I finished, he said, the city for me, Denver. I never said Denver. I hadn't even known it myself until that second. 4 years, 4 fucking years, every one of them had known, and not one told me. They'd called me the detective. They'd watched me apologize to her and kept her secret instead of mine. I hung up. I just started removing people. I blocked Rachel. No closure speech, because closure is for people who were honest about why it ended. I left the group chat that had been my whole social life. In one afternoon, I went from a man with a girlfriend and a built-in family to a man alone in an apartment that had gone very quiet. The big ones, you can guess, the 4 years, the ring money I'd quietly set aside, but it's the small stuff nobody warns you about. Reaching to text a joke to the group and remembering there's no group. And the hardest one, I used to be a man who trusted easy. That man didn't survive this. I grieved him like a death. But the thing that took longest to come back wasn't the heartbreak. It was my own judgment. For 4 years, Every time my gut told me the truth, the people I loved swore it was broken, and I believed them. You stop trusting your own gut. I'd catch a real signal and talk myself out of it on the spot. So here's what I believe now. People love to ask whose fault it is when you stop trusting yourself, like you share the blame for going blind after someone spent 4 years turning off the lights. It is not a tie. Making a person doubt what they plainly see on purpose as a group for years has a name, and it isn't a rough patch. That part is theirs completely. The only part that's mine is this: I let them keep voting on my reality. I trusted their comfort over my own eyes, and the day I stopped, the whole thing collapsed in about 90 minutes. That's how thin it was. Your gut was never the problem. The problem is how many people you let into the room to argue with it. Maybe you think a man who can be talked out of what he sees was always going to be talked out of it. And maybe that's the question you should sit with, not me. If everyone around you swore you were imagining it, how long would it take you to stop trusting yourself? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone.